Somebody that's going to Maricola, and everybody's going to worry about getting their levels up and changing their blood and having them a bunch of fancy concentrated nutrition, and we're going to do that against us. We're going to bring them here and put them in a room with a bottle of water. There's nothing else. Have a little contest. We're going to see who's healthier at the end of a month. Anybody want to take bets on that? Okay, we know what's going to happen. We know because it doesn't need a bunch of nutrition in there to get healthy. What it needs is to detox. Oh, what if you give it a bunch of really healthy nutrition that helps it detox? How about just giving it nothing and letting it detox? That's the most effective way for this organism to detox. Okay, so that's why we're not excited about any concentrated nutritional concept. We keep our eye out and an open mind to scientific literature which indicates where there may be problems, like a modern vegan. A modern vegan is it's just an evolutionary anomaly. There were never any vegans. And so as a result of that, and there certainly weren't any vegans eating their half of their food out of boxes that had been sterilized, and the other half of their food out of a produce aisle that's been washed down carefully. So they have the possibility, and they live in homes where it's all clean, is the possibility of getting a B12 deficiency. You see what I'm saying? So you could get a B12 deficiency by being a modern vegan, but that's because you're way out there in terms of evolution. You're living a very strange looking life. There were no, so that Al and I paid attention to that. There was data coming in 25 years ago that looked like some vegans are getting B12 deficiencies. Not good. Well, Alan would be like, well, we know that they're eating diet properly. All right, so that's one thing we looked out for. And we're also a bit concerned from time to time about vitamin D, because you got people living inside all day long and having clothing on. And so as a result, their relationship to the sun is unnaturally in deficiency. So that's another thing that we look at. So there's a couple, other than that, I don't think there's much to be thinking about deficiencies. Yes?
How would you explain the results of Ornish and Esselstyn's research being different if the variables were the same and the only difference was that one had a sense of community there by implication? If Ornish was worse, then that's bad for you.
Yeah, Ornish didn't have as good a results as Esselstyn.
But how do you explain that?
Yeah, because for one thing, he included some dairy products in his diet, because he needed to get a little support from the dairy board. And another thing is that because Ornish did not emphasize the food as heavily as Esselstyn, when you start to have people thinking that what's important is to hug instead of eating your salad, then they do more hugging and eat less salad, you see? And so we wind up with not as good a compliance. That's why it's useful. It sounds unfriendly, the way I often talk about things, but the way I'm talking about things is to actually talk about what the truth is, so that we focus our attention on the variables that have influence. So don't think that you're gonna, move to Italy and then have a nice little community, and then we're all gonna drink wine and have olive oil, and we're all gonna live 10 years longer, because we're all peaceful and happy, and we love our neighbors, and we're close to the soil. No, that isn't gonna work, okay? You start drinking wine, you're gonna start doing some damage to your liver and your brain. You eat that olive oil, we're gonna have problems associated with that, etc. So no, it isn't gonna help you to have that sense of community. That it may help your happiness, but it's not gonna help your health. And people that think that happiness and health are together, they're not together. They're separate phenomena. They're a different issue. They're not the same thing. You can be freaking miserable and healthy as hell. Okay? You can also be very happy and be in serious trouble with respect to your health. Those are different issues. They're intertwined, they intersect at certain points, but they are not the same thing. People have very bizarre concepts. They just have very primitive concepts about health and disease. So they think, for example, I'm not talking about people in general, I'm talking about high level, big shot Stanford professors think this way. that they think that if you have traumatic issues that are terrible and your boyfriend broke up with you on your 38th birthday and you never then got to have a kid, and that's why, through that loss, why you got breast cancer 10 years later. Yeah? I'm talking high-level people here, professors of psychology and psychiatry I've talked to. This is what they think. This is bizarre. This is the concept that your psychology, what goes on between your ears, is having a profound impact on your body. It's not.
See,
Okay,
you mean
people
to say
don't- yeah,
continuous stress does not have any effect?
Not substantially at all. The truth of the matter is that, let me tell you what's stressful. What's stressful is waking up in the morning with a spear and a hungry village, and you've got to go face the lions and the tigers to try to bring home some food. That's stressful. Okay? The human being was designed by nature for a hell of a lot of stress. And the fact that it can kick out some cortisol, now everybody thinks, oh my God, my cortisol's a little high. This job is killing me, and my doctor said my cortisol's high, and that's why I'm sick. Really? You didn't come from a long line of ancestors that didn't face down saber-toothed cats and starvation and tribal warfare? Of course you did. You have phenomenal stress tolerance. If you look at people that lived through the Holocaust, as opposed to their matched individuals who did not have to go through the Holocaust, it turns out the ones that lived through the Holocaust lived longer. What about that? Okay, well, let me tell you. And it's only, they said, well, maybe it's the ones that lived longer were selected out of the groups that died. No. The truth of the matter is, if you were in the Holocaust as a young person, i.e. a 10-year-old, you didn't live any longer than your matched controls. But if you were 25 or older, you did. Why? Because you'd been eating a rich diet. And you had developed cardiovascular disease by the time you were 25 years old. You'd already had some substantial atherosclerosis, as we know. And if you had to live through the Holocaust, what did you do? You fasted. You were starving, and therefore you ate away that atherosclerosis. Then 4 years later, once the war's over, you're back with your knife and fork, bellying up to the bar again, eating, whatever it is that you're eating. I guess you weren't eating pig's feet. Because you weren't eating pork, but you were eating any other animal food that they had there in Europe. But you got a break, whereas your 10-year-old kid didn't get a break, because you rewound 25 years. You rewound a more critical amount of cardiovascular disease process. So you lived 2 years longer than people that didn't go through the Holocaust. How about them apples? So if it turned out that stress was some big impact on human life, guess what? Oh my God, of course those people watched their children be burned out. Come on, how stressful can you possibly get? You can't. You can't get any more stressful than that. Those people lived through spectacularly unnatural degrees of stress. And what happened? They lived longer. What's that tell you about psychology and life expectancy? It tells you it's not a variable of interest. That's what it tells you. Okay? The variable of interest is, what would you expect? It's a machine. You put healthy food in the machine, you exercise the machine, you get sunshine in the machine, you don't pollute the machine, and that's how the machine works as long as it can work as well as it can work.
So is eating vitamin D the same as sunshine, or is there a substantial difference?
Good question. We would have to have a panel, and McDougall would say no, Campbell would say I'm not sure, and I think we don't know. I think it's probably pretty good and useful. But I can't go on record for that because I don't think there's enough science. It's a little iffy.
If you're low in vitamin D and you
Yeah.
start taking a supplement and,
Right.
your levels go up in your blood test, is that
Right.
a true indicator?
I don't know. I think it is. All I can say is I think it's a little too muddy. I think there's some indications that just because that blood level goes up in your blood, that doesn't mean you're as healthy as a person who actually gets the D from the sun. So I'm not sure about this issue. I'm not sure we get to skin the cat by taking a pill. We may be able to, but I'm not sure. I'm going to assume that at modest levels that it's probably not toxic, and therefore if your levels are very low, you may be better off taking the D than not taking the D. I think you're better off taking the sun. that's where you're better off. It doesn't take your ability to synthesize D stops after about 20 minutes. Because that's it. Just a few minutes of sun. So essentially this system was designed by nature to get yourself about 20 minutes of sun a day, and then whether you get any more than that is pretty much irrelevant, and it doesn't even need to be 20 minutes a day, because the truth is you can store it. Okay, so you just need to get, when we start realizing how much sun would be essentially required for this species to get on this skin, the answer is not much. Okay, and so the recommendation would be to get that amount of sun rather than be supplementing it with D. That's what I would be thinking. Yes?
You still get it through sunblock? I mean, you still get vitamin D if you wear sunblock?
I believe so. I believe I read that. I'm not expert in this issue. Bring this up to Alan on Monday and let him yell at you. So I don't know. I don't know a lot of these.
No.
That's a, what's that?
I think it's no.
That-
It blocks the UV, which gets into your skin and starts the chemical reaction. So
So-
I think it's recommended that you go without sunscreen.
Yeah, maybe so, but I don't think.
Ask Alan.
I don't think the sunblock does block that. Okay, so I actually think you're still synthesizing D. That's a good open question for my knowledge. Yes.
Does the intensity, if it's morning or afternoon, make a difference?
You know what? It does actually, but so you're better off in lower intensity because you don't want to be burned unnecessarily, but you don't need a lot of minutes. They used to. The useful thinking was that they couldn't measure it until you'd been like 10 minutes or so, or whatever the heck it was. But now, apparently, the evidence is thinking that they didn't have sufficiently sensitive mechanisms, that you will start manufacturing heat very quickly. Okay? Yes, Rikishi.
PLU is very strong on no grains because our ancestors never did agriculture or ate grains. What is your take on grains?
Oh yeah, we've been eating grains for 1 million years. Yeah, so just that you haven't had planted wheat fields, but yeah, the evidence is actually that grains have been in use for hundreds of thousands of years. So it's not what the paleo people are thinking. So the paleo people are arguing that we've just started to use these grains in the last 10,000 years since the dawn of agriculture, and that doesn't fly. It just doesn't. It's not consistent with the historical evidence, fossil evidence.
Except for gluten. Gluten was not there for.
I mean, gluten's been in wheat, and wheat's been around forever. So no, I don't. Now the thing is that there are people. Let's keep in mind that there are people, quite a few people, that don't do very well with gluten. So it could be wise for some people to stay out of gluten, but not everybody. Okay, there's individual differences. Yeah.
And you don't have to eat grains if you don't want to.
Yeah, you don't have to eat
It's
grains.
perfectly healthy.
All kinds of other starches to eat, no question. Yes.
Do you live longer if you fast? If you water fast, do you live longer because you have less chance of getting disease? Is that kind of
Nobody knows.
We
Okay.
hope so.
Here's what we're up to here. That we're going to be here in the next 5 years. We're going to be able to measure a lot of these biological markers pre and post fasting, and see the impact of fasting as opposed to just healthy eating, etc. And we're going to